All right, Jeff Surber, Operations Section Chief for Great Basin Team 1 with this morning's update. Starting where I always start over here on the I-70 corridor at No Name, you can see that our containment of the No Name drainage has remained the same. As I've said before, we aren't going to push people up into this part of the drainage because it's too rough, and what we did is we built dozer line down on the ridge top to contain anything that might sneak up here on top. It's mostly aspen and an old burn up in there, so if and when this fire runs up, hits the top, it'll spot into that, and we'll have a dozer line that we can use to contain that fire that ends up on top. So far, as of yesterday afternoon, it had still not crossed the No Name drainage. This map is fairly accurate. It is infrared as of last night. There is that fire activity down here in the bottom of the drainage, but we have put buckets on it to try to knock down the flames right down in here along the edge. So it's smoldering fire. We keep an eye on it from either windy point or from the air when we fly, and if it starts to build up intensity, we go ahead and send a helicopter out and have them knock down the intensity, and that way we can continue to try to keep it from crossing over. If it was to cross over in the future, it would take a lot of, I guess you'd call it, events that don't typically occur to push it back towards Glenwood. This time of the year we get a prevailing southwest flow. We can get thunderstorm downdrafts, but that would typically blow a fire around, make it spot across the canyon, but that isn't going to make a sustained run for miles and miles through the type of fuel we have between Glenwood Springs and the fire. So we're feeling comfortable that if and when it does cross, we can deal with it up here on top with all the work that's been done by all the folks on that division. We have had a lot of people on that division November that I haven't talked a lot about, but you can see there's dozer operators, there's hand crews, there's people over here at these two cabins yesterday dealing with this fire that's running towards what we call the silver cabin. One has a silver roof, one has a brown roof. This is the silver cabin, and it's approaching very close to that cabin. So we do have people watching it, and we'll deal with that effectively when it gets near that cabin. Moving over through this area, probably from about this point over to this edge of Wagon Gulch where you can see, or excuse me, the edge of Grizzly where you can see this dozer line along the edge. This area from here to here will likely not be shown contained for quite some time. I think I've explained it before. This is extremely rough. If the fire continues to move into these drainages and moves north, then it'll get into more moderate terrain where we can do some work up in the northern portion. But we won't be actively directly firefighting in those two areas. We'll be using aircraft to kind of cool them down when they get close to places like cabins or areas of concern where they want to cross the No Name drainage. From Grizzly back over here towards Coffee Pot, you can see some new containment line here. They're feeling comfortable that this is cooled down to the point where it won't escape. Today at the end of shift, probably half to maybe, probably at least half of this will be black lined. Basically, they're starting to feel really good about how that looks as far as its ability to escape. So a little bit more containment will be established in there today. We are contained from this point here all the way back over to the Bear Ranch, feeling really good about all this country in here as far as its ability to escape on us. We're up to 44% containment today. You'll notice that there's a couple of red lines in this area and one down here that aren't there anymore. Those were a little bit confusing. They are areas of unburned vegetation that were picked up with the infrared, but they were so tight, the area between where the fire went in and created an actual island was so tight that it was effectively closed. So what we did is we adjusted the perimeter, and that removed those islands that were shown in there, even though they are still green vegetation. And again, I'd stress that we show this as being pink, when in fact there's a lot of this that's green inside. If you drive the canyon, you'll see there's a lot of green still in the canyon. It wasn't totally nicked out and black. So that's the way the whole fire is. You will see some places, and you'll see them from I-70 where it is really hot, intense fire, and it's just black sticks and scorched ground. but there are places where backing fire at night burned, and it burned the understory, and there's still green trees. So that's a green island in there. Those two were taken out, and this one was taken out just to more accurately portray the actual perimeter that we're working on. Moving back over here to the Bear Ranch, Spruce Creek drainage, you can see this burn. A couple days ago, this burn only looked like kind of what we were calling an eyebrow that comes out here. Now it's starting to close up. That's because right along this dozer line, it was burned yesterday with a variety of methods. One method was a drone, what we call UAS, and it has what they call referred to as dragon eggs. They're very small incendiary devices that come out of that drone and start fire. And what we did was fly the drone up, start dropping the devices, and then back down towards the dozer line. And when it got close enough to the dozer line, the hand crews lit it by hand on the ground. So right when they got down here, there's kind of a little bit of a wet area down there in the bottom of the Spruce Creek drainage that did not burn. They're going to get in there and try to clean that up so that there's no possibility for escape. They'll do that today, and then this will fill in over time. And the perimeter will actually change from about where the blue dot is there, 870. It'll come around like this instead of the way it is now once it fills in. And I would expect that it'll be 2-3 days maybe of work along that edge to make sure it's cold enough that before the new folks that come in. And today is this team's last day, and when the new folks come in, it'll be their fire, and they'll decide when that's cold enough to turn that edge black. But the actual firing operation should be done by the end of shift today. From approximately the X-ray Zulu break, what we call our division break, over to drop point 80, we have contained line here. This section, I originally believed that this would probably be contained by the time the team left, but I've been, the hesitancy to call this contained is because the vegetation between this dozer line and the fire is too green to light on fire right now. And this edge has a lot of snags and difficult places to send people into and put it out. So pretty much what we're caught between being able to burn out and secure this line and make this old edge black, and going after it and trying to get in there and actually put a line or use water to put out that edge, because there's snags and there's other hazards to the firefighters. So what we're concerned with is if we show that this is contained, and then 3 weeks, a month from now, you continue to get hot, dry weather in the fall, that as that sagebrush component up here, sagebrush grass component up on top dries out, that if we say that's contained and then it dries out and a tree falls over, then it's off to the races again, because it's September and it hasn't rained. It doesn't mean that there's a high probability that'll come out of there, but we don't like to show that it's contained and then have something escape a month from now. So that's why that remains red. From this last piece of line, our Division Alpha, this is still over on Zulu. They feel like that portion they were able to cover enough, and this is mostly aspen, and they've actually been able to walk along the edge safely, so they're ready to turn that black, which they did. So that added to the containment today. And then finally, this piece down here on our Division Alpha that I've talked about for several days, about the dropping retardant in there with buckets and then using dozers to build that line. I would expect that this will be turning black either by end of shift today or soon thereafter. So there will be a little bit more added, I think, at the end of shift to the entire fire as far as contained line. And we still have IA resources and initial attack resources, engines, and other people that are specifically tied down here to work they're doing along this area. A couple of days ago, we sent some folks up the Hanging Lake Trail to make sure that we documented what needed to be done before that could be open to the public. That's the kind of stuff we use those initial attack resources or a structure protection resources for, where they can quickly get back to their vehicles or be near their vehicles while they're working, so that they can respond to initial attack if necessary. Yesterday we did get a call late in the day that we had an initial attack off Cottonwood Pass, so we all headed down that way yesterday evening about dark, and we sent a helicopter. I was there myself. We sent the initial attack folks, and we could not find anything. So at the time, one of the people that reported the smoke pointed it out to me, and it was the smoke that was drifting off this fire that we had started yesterday to close the area in on X-ray. We were down here approximately here on Cottonwood Pass. The smoke was drifting off of this. People could see that smoke, and they thought it was a new start. That's my feeling about what got called in. So we'll send some of our folks around there to Cottonwood Pass again today to make sure that we weren't mistakenly thinking it was drift smoke and that there really was a fire there, but we don't believe there was one there. We think it was drift smoke, but we'll double check today to make sure that we didn't miss anything yesterday. There was no lightning in that area yesterday, and we spent quite a bit of time from the air and the ground and couldn't find anything, but we will double check. That's all I have for today.